So we're going to go ahead and get started today. You should have got your feedback back from Jeff about your regional project, and everybody moved on. And so that's good. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today. And so I've got a presentation to kind of give you 4 tips for taking your regional project and taking that to the state, what you need to do to take that to a state level project. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Here it is. All right, so from regionals to state, right? So you've got this project, and the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a way to take data, right? So in your regional proposal, you probably said something like, we're going to measure attendance, or we're going to ask people what they want to see in a website, or we're going to record how many people want this, or whatever, survey the community or whatever. You're going to want to find a way to do that, and really the easiest way to do that is just to create Google Forms, right? And so if you take my example of the virtual Minecraft playground, so remember my hypothetical project is, because we cannot gather in physical spaces due to the pandemic, I'm going to create this virtual playground in Minecraft that I will invite my school to, right? So if I was doing that project, the way I would take that for data-wise is I would say, before the project, I would survey my kids in the school, or maybe it's just my STLP or just a group of kids, and I would say, what kind of things would you like to see on this virtual playground, right? So think qualitative data and think quantitative data, right? And then during this, when I built my playground in virtual Minecraft, how many kids are showing up to it? There's your quantitative data right there. So maybe week 1, I have 5 kids show up to my virtual playground in Minecraft. Week 2, I have 10 kids. Week 3, I have 25 kids, and so on and so on. And you could use Google Sheets for that, right? So it doesn't always have to be a Google form, but Google Forms is just an easy way to get data as well. So that's my during data there. And then afterwards, I might use a Google form again. I say, well, what did you like most about the virtual playground? Did you like playing on the virtual monkey bars, or did you like playing on the virtual geodesic dome thing, or whatever? I don't know what that thing's called. They kind of look like a geodesic dome. Did you like playing on that? What could make your experience better? So again, you're getting back to that qualitative data, right? So find a way to take data before, during, and after your project, right? Because judges are going to want to see that. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is talk to an expert about your project. Okay, now that you've got your project approved for state, and if I'm doing this virtual hypothetical playground in Minecraft, I might want to talk to somebody who builds playgrounds. I might invite somebody who works for a playground company. What kind of things can I put on my playground? Just to give me ideas of like what kind of things could go on a playground. It doesn't even have to be that, though. It's one of those things where you might want to think outside the box, or even look into your own school of, like, Miss Jones has been a teacher for 30 years at, Chenoweth Elementary. She's taken a lot of kids to the playground. What does she notice kids like to play on? Well, the kids really like the slides. You know what? But I don't really see many kids going over to the monkey bars, or the kids really like the spinny things. But I don't really see kids climbing, I don't know, that kind of thing. So like, think about that too. Those are your experts too. The kid, somebody maybe that's been around, like taking kids to a lot of playgrounds. Your teachers, they could be an expert as well. So think about somebody from your community, whether that's your school community or it's somebody, like if you're doing a project with the Humane Society, obviously you would want to talk to somebody from the Humane Society, right? If you're doing a project with that involves some sort of business thing or something like that, you might want to talk to somebody in the business community or a graphic designer. I don't know, stuff like that. So, and then it's important to, when you talk to that expert, make sure you name names, right? So if I talk to Miss Jones, I want to say in my state presentation that I talked to Miss Jones, who's been taking kids to the playground at Chenoweth Elementary for 30 years. And she's an expert on, seeing how kids interact on the playground. So those are the kind of things you want to do. You want to name names. When you talk to that person in the community, you want to make sure that you you say who you talk to from the community in your project. Okay. So then that's tip number 2, right? Number 3 is to read your feedback, right? You got feedback from these judges for the regional project, and think of it was kind of like a pilot episode of a TV show, right? So everybody got approved though. So for this, so it's one of those things where even if the judge saw it and was like, you know what, this really isn't quite ready for state, you got kind of a green ticket or a golden ticket to go on to the next level, right? So read that feedback you got from those judges, and you're going to want to do, when you look at that feedback, you're going to look at the easy adjustments first, because sometimes those judges, like, they might give you really high level feedback of like, you really need to bring somebody in who's an engineer, or somebody in who's a or like you might want to build this and this and this. Or I had one little girl who her project was, she was going to create a website of all these reputable sources, because she said the problem was her classmates, and she was in like the 6th grade. She said her classmates and teachers had a really hard time finding reputable sources for doing research. So her goal was to just build a website, kind of like a Wikipedia type website of all these different sources. Like, so if you want to search for reputable sources on George Washington, she's going to have a list of reputable sources on George Washington, vetted sources. Or if you want to do something on climate change, she was going to have a list of reputable sources for climate change. That is a huge project, and it's a project for just that she was going to tackle alone. So I told her, I was like, you really might want to think about bringing somebody else in on this project, because this is a lot of work for just you. Now, will she bring somebody in on that project? She may or may not. But I gave her other feedback as well. Okay. So it's one of those things where she might look at that and go, well, I can't bring anybody else in this project. So I'm going to focus on what I can do, which is X, Y, and Z. All right. So focus on the things you can do that are easy first, rather than the stuff that you look at and go, that might be a little bit harder to do. Okay. So think about that. And then the last tip is, you're probably going to be building a Google site for this, and we'll go over again that you need to be creating a Google site and inviting your students as editors, which I will talk to you about in just a moment and show you again. But when you think about this, when your kids are editing that Google site, they want to think about stuff like color. Okay, so notice this site, right, or this Google slideshow right here. I've got yellow font on a purple background, which is a really good design choice. A not so good design choice would be this. All right. That's harder to read, right? So black font on a purple background, that's really hard to read. And that's one of the things that kids really struggle with, is they like doing stuff like this, or doing stuff like this, where it's like size 10 font on a really dark background, this really tiny font. They don't really get, like, that's the hardest thing for my kids at Children Elementary, is they didn't understand that, and you had to teach them over and over and over again of stuff like this. Color matters when it comes to design and readability and that kind of stuff. Fonts matter. Okay, so think of like your fonts that are readable, and like no Comic Sans, for example, or no cursive. And then spacing matters. So you think about negative space, so that might be something you look into too. If you're not familiar with negative space, it's the idea of, on a page, it's having space, a lot of space on a page. So if I were to drag this up, I've got a lot of negative space on that page because there's nothing over here, right? But if I were to put like 9 other pictures on there, that might be a problem. So think about that as well when you talk to your kids about designing their Google site. All right, so those are my 4 tips. I'm going to go over now really quick how to build this Google site again, because remember, these are recorded, so you'll have this to go back to. But when you build this Google site, because you probably will be building a Google site to house your project here, you as the teacher are going to want to do this if you haven't done it already. New, more Google Sites, It's going to take a minute because Google Sites is there's a lot of, I guess, data or I don't know, bandwidth. I don't know. It's a really big entity when you build a site. So I had new Google Sites, and then so I've built this site. And notice I can't do anything to this site. It's all grayed out right now. And does anybody know why? What do I need to do to this site to be able to share it with my kids and do all that stuff? Who remembers?
Give it a title.
Give it a title, exactly. So I might call this Chenoweth STLP site, and hopefully Carrie King has not called her that. So I'll do it this. I'll call it B. Chenoweth STLP site B. All right. So Chenoweth STLP site, and then once I've given it a title, notice that all this is going to turn to a darker gray. And so now I can start sharing it with my kids. So if I can click on my person with the plus, and I can add people like Jackson Bosley, okay? Jackson Bosley is a student at my school. I can make Jackson Bosley an editor, all right? So that's what I want to make him, not a published viewer, make him an editor. And I say, all right, Jackson, here you go. You are an editor. And so now he can come in and he can change the site and add stuff and do whatever. But it's important because I am the owner as the teacher, because that allows somebody from Trigg County or Warren County to view the site. If Jackson created the site on his own, no, the Trigg County person, the Warren County person, they cannot view it. All right. So then I would send it, and that's it. That's all you do, right? And then you kind of turn it over to your kids and help them along the way. So that's creating the Google site. All right, I'm gonna stop presenting. Any questions on that or anything we covered today? Did everybody get their feedback, and it was your feedback? I'd heard from a couple of people that said that they got feedback that wasn't theirs. It was to a different school or something.
Yeah, I think mine could have been confused with somebody else in my group because some of it didn't make sense for our project.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going back.
Anytime there's a lot of people filling out Google Forms, it's. Go ahead.
I have gone back in my junk mail, my deleted mail, and my email to everything back to the 18th, and I see nothing.
Okay. Can you?
So when I had gotten that email from Rebecca the other day saying like, "Hey, everybody passed," I thought that was all I was supposed to get until you mentioned feedback today, because I have seen nothing.
Okay. So if you could email Jeff Sobolski and CC me on it, that would be great. So I'm just curious if maybe. I'm sure it got lost, but then maybe somebody didn't. One of the judges didn't do their thing.
Okay.
Kind of hard too. It's like, these judges have to be accountable as well.
Okay.
All right, and then DPOJ, which you mentioned in the email, that is due in late February. If you look at the STLP super sheet, it says due January 8th, 2020. Notice it's 2020. So he hasn't updated that. So ignore that January 8th date. Everything is due in late February. He has not given an exact date for that, and there's no registration form for that as of yet. Okay, but you can still check out the different categories and rubrics he's got available on that STLP super sheet.
Russ, there's a question in the chat. From Mary Jo, will we need to provide judges for state?
Yes. And you'll want to be, and again, you can be your own judge. It's one of those things where usually you're your own judge, and it will be a virtual thing again. So it'll be a situation where usually you're your own judge, but yes, you will provide a judge for state as well.
Hey, Russ, were we supposed to get feedback from 4 different adults or just from 2? Because when we got ours, it only came from 2 people. And I'm like, man, that really stinks for our kiddos, because I went through and really detailed everything on all 4 of mine, and we only got 2. So that's where I was just kind of curious as well.
I think it was a real kind of a random bag on that. I think some people probably got 4, some people probably got 2, maybe somebody got 1, maybe some people got none. It's one of those things where I think it was just a random bag. Unfortunately. So hopefully you got feedback. If you did not get feedback, I'll tell you what, and if there's no feedback coming to you, send it to me and I will give you feedback on it. Okay. I will give you honest feedback on it. Or if you feel like you need more feedback than just the one you got, you can send it to me and I'll give you feedback.
You want me to attach that link for
Yeah.
my, okay, I can attach the link to my presentation in that email that says I didn't get feedback.
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll do that too.
Yep. All right. Okay. I think that's about it, guys. Unless you have something else to ask, I think we're good. Welcome back. Hopefully you're having a good first week back. So thank you so much.
Hey, Russ, so are you saying that you could be an expert that our students could reach out to?
On what on a what exactly?
Okay, so like you saw what ours was and how we are creating the website, the student-based website for students to get through the pandemic and keep the school connected. So are you saying that you are an expert that our students could reach out to for feedback on how that website is? Because unfortunately for us, when we sent in our proposal, it was a video that our students recorded describing it. And the feedback that we received wasn't so much about the project. And like the feedback, I'm like, well, they don't really know what we have in mind. We answered the questions, but they haven't been able to see it and things like that. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, you can always send something. You can always send something to me and I'll give you feedback on it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.